has your approach or understanding of the character of Wilson Fisk changed throughout your course of playing the character?
Well, I'm an actor, so, I have to service the story that's put in front of me. I have to do my best to make the story written work. And so there's a lot of different directions that, when you're servicing a story that you go in from one series to another.
Back in 2023, the overlords at Marvel realized they might have messed up. The return of Disney CEO Bob Iger signaled a change in the wind, with a much-needed slowdown on the horizon. As a result, their 2024 calendar looks surprisingly light, with Echo and Deadpool 3 as the only things the company would be releasing. With all its episodes dumped onto Disney in one go, Echo emerged as a show that marked the dawn of the Marvel Spotlight era, a promise to bring more grounded, character-driven stories. Effectively their attempt to pivot away from its 16-year legacy of intertwined, complex narratives to something a bit more digestible for the casual viewer. But Echo quickly strays from its pledged path. In less than 30 minutes, the show dives headfirst into familiar territory, with Maya Lopez and Daredevil thrown into an unremarkable brawl, and a cameo by Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye, highlighting they knew it couldn't stand on its own two legs.
I am tired of the same old phrases, the same old things.
The action is subpar. The writers confuse arrogance with stoicism, characters lack defined arcs, clear motivations, and seem to float in a narrative limbo. And they've butchered not only the character of Maya from the comics, but also Wilson Fisk from the Daredevil Netflix series. Worst of all, the show is boring and hard to get through. The rocky road to Echo's creation might shed some light on these problems. Originally conceived as an 8-episode miniseries, Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige reportedly found it unreleasable. The attempt to shorten it into a 4-episode series from the wreckage was then abandoned due to its dismal quality, leading to extensive reshoots. What we're left with is 5 episodes of filler, a disappointing product of 11 writers and 2 directors, Sidney Freeland and Catriona McKenzie. Despite its 5-episode format, which could have been an opportunity to deeply explore Maya's world, the series feels like a hastily sketched outline than a vivid portrait of her life and community. The series bears the hallmarks of excessive rewrites and editing, a veritable Frankenstein's monster of television production. Each episode has 3 editors, but only 2 are a constant presence, underscoring the show's lack of cohesive vision. It's committee filmmaking cranked up to 11, where too many cooks aren't just spoiling the broth, but turning it into a confusing stew. It really feels like Marvel's Infinity War didn't just wipe out half the universe, but also all of their competent writers. And then there's the resurrection issue.
Doesn't anyone stay dead anymore?
In a move that smacks of desperation, it falls into the trap of reviving characters in a way that shatters any semblance of believability.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Marvel might be patting itself on the back for the show's nods to Native American culture and a more mature age rating, which isn't justified given the lack of blood, violence, language, or adult themes. But this isn't groundbreaking. Netflix-era Marvel shows like Jessica Jones, Daredevil, and The Punisher did it much better. The opening scene is a dance of myths and legends, centered around the Nanuwaye Mound and led by Chaffa, envisioned as the first Choctaw woman. Before delving into Chaffa's significance and her connections to Maya, Echo takes a detour, retracing the steps of Hawkeye. This includes repurposing footage from the previous show to recreate entire scenes. It's an imbalance that mirrors the show itself, a blend of potent cultural imagery and disjointed storytelling, where the sum of the parts don't form a captivating whole. Set immediately after the events of Hawkeye, Echo follows Maya as she uncovers the dark truth about her father's death at the hands of Clint Barton under the orders of Kingpin. The revelation propels Maya out of Kingpin's shadow and onto a quest for vengeance, marked by her audacious attack on Fisk with a bullet to the head.
You and I, your father, were family.
It then picks up with Maya returning to her roots in Tamaha, Oklahoma. Through a series of extensive flashbacks, we unravel Maya's past, the tragic car accident that claimed her mother Taloa, her estrangement from her grandmother Chula, and her upbringing under the ominous shadow of Kingpin. The show paints a portrait of Maya as a woman driven by intense grief, spiraling into a vortex of fury and a relentless thirst for retribution. It also dangles the prospect of diving deep into its lead character's family ties, only to tease us with a mere glimpse in its background for most of the show. Instead, the early episodes fixate on Maya's vendetta against Kingpin's operations in Tamaha. This focus tips the series off balance, making it feel like a one-trick pony rather than a well-rounded narrative steed. Marvel assured us that Echo could stand alone, accessible to MCU novices, yet the series heavily leans on other better shows like Netflix's Daredevil. Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio reprise their roles as Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk, turning Echo into a quasi-continuation of the Daredevil saga, with worse fight choreography, character development, world building, narrative structure, and less nuance. The irony is that Daredevil, heavily featured in the marketing, barely makes an appearance. He's in a cameo in one scene of episode 1, relegated to a flashback that hardly impacts the story, and I'm glad we didn't see any more of him as they would have ruined him too. This begs the question, why dedicate half an episode to recapping events for a show that supposedly doesn't require prior knowledge? Because of this, Echo finds itself in a narrative limbo. It's not quite a welcoming gateway for newcomers to the Marvel Universe, nor does it fully satisfy the cravings of longtime fans. Maya's journey is peppered with spectral visitations from her ancestors, including Chaffa, the first Choctaw woman, the sportswoman Loak, and Tuklo, a warrior from the 1800s. We also have her complicated family dynamics, her avoidance of cousin Bonnie post her father's death, and a strained relationship with her grandmother Chula, whose resentment towards Maya's father has cast a very long shadow. As Maya navigates this labyrinth of personal and ancestral conflicts while trying to sabotage the underworld, Kingpin's men catch wind of her activities. It takes until the penultimate episode for Maya to realize that Kingpin, presumed dead at the end of Hawkeye, is actually alive and kicking, with his empire still thriving. And the twist? He extends an offer for Maya to return to New York as his Queenpin. By episode 3, we're back in Tamaha, where her presence sends ripples through the lives of her family. Grandmother Chula and cousins Biscuit and Bonnie find their world turned upside down, with Maya's inconsiderate actions putting them in harm's way. The show meanders here, focusing on Maya's evasion of meaningful discussion with her family. The delay in confronting familial issues deprives the narrative of what could have been a deeply impactful drama. Instead, Maya skulks around for the majority of the episodes. She also finds herself locking horns with Uncle Henry, a character as entangled in Kingpin's nefarious web as Maya's late father William. At the core of Echo is Maya's transformation from a villainous figure in Hawkeye to a supposed hero. Initially hell-bent on avenging her father's death by hunting down Ronin, the re-emergence of Kingpin forces Maya to confront a critical choice: follow in his footsteps or embrace her potential for good. Hawkeye, in its brief exploration of Maya's backstory, touches on her relationship with Wilson Fisk. We learn that Maya's father William was a high-ranking member of the Tracksuit Mafia, painting Fisk as a quasi-uncle figure in her life. Echo delves deeper, revealing in a pivotal flashback how a young Maya not only witnesses, but also participates in Fisk's assault on a discourteous ice cream vendor, marking the beginning of her ascent in Fisk's criminal hierarchy. The scene with the ice cream vendor is a twisted testament to Kingpin's affection for her, a toxic love, true to his style in all of his relationships. It cements the idea that he recognized Maya's potential early on, molding her into a key player in his empire. Her transformation is underscored by Maya's gradual realization of his true nature. Once viewing him as a father figure, she comes to see his affection as nothing more than strategic manipulation. For me, the problem is that the crux of Maya's journey emerges only in the latter part of the 4th episode, and it's not until the finale that she truly connects with her native heritage and her late mother's gentle nature. This connection allows her to draw strength from the history of her ancestors. However, the show falters in presenting this cultural embrace as part of a meaningful narrative contrast. The issue is that Maya's heritage as a thematic counterpoint to Kingpin's violence only materializes in the final episode. The series also sheds light on the unique dynamics of communication between Fisk and Maya, with his use of an interpreter to speak with her, and his ordering of the woman's execution, something Maya doesn't hear happening in the background. While the rest of her family fluently converses in ASL, due to her mother also being hard of hearing, his inability to do so becomes a point of contention. And in episode 4, Maya confronts Fisk about this, suggesting his lack of effort in learning ASL indicates a lack of genuine care for her. It's not until the tail end of the series, particularly in a conversation with Chula in episode 4, that Maya begins to embrace her heroic side. Chula's words,
"Generations are echoing, reaching out to us at a time when we need them most,"
suggest Maya's powers are a call from her ancestors. This realization could have been a profound turning point, but it's somewhat lost in the show's haste to move forward. Not only that, but it stumbles in fleshing out these superhero abilities. They surface late in the season and are shrouded in ambiguity, never quite getting the clear exposition or demonstration they deserve. The depiction of the Lopez women's powers adds to the intrigue, showcasing abilities from healing, super strength to forcing others into visions. The issue is that it's a significant departure from Maya's character in the comics, where she possesses photographic reflexes akin to Taskmaster. The decision to alter her powers for the series was explained by Sidney Freeland, the show's director and executive producer, who rather bluntly commented on the original powers being kind of lame.
You're shitting me. I'm not shitting on you.
This statement raises questions about Freeland's motivations for helming the project. If the essence of Maya's comic book character didn't resonate with her, why take on the story at all?
But I would describe myself as a big fan.
The show also falls prey to a common MCU ailment. Character developments and epiphanies are flicked on like light switches, disdaining the intricate process of personal growth and discovery. The storytelling approach in Echo chains together cultural symbols in a way that, paradoxically, obscures their historical resonance. While visually striking, they lose their emotional depth, reduced to mere backdrops in a story struggling to find its footing. The women in Maya's family are depicted as powerful and resilient, yet this strength, meant to be Maya's source of inspiration, feels superficial, and the narrative fails to ground their resilience in a way that resonates meaningfully with Maya's journey as the story rushes to get to the end. The fifth and final episode, centered around the Choctaw Nation powwow in Tamaha, tries to celebrate Maya's heritage, but ends up feeling like a forced convergence of plot and spectacle. The Tracksuit Mafia's arrival leads to a comical showdown, where Maya gives the women and her family powers, reminiscent of a scene from Thor: Love and Thunder, where Thor bestows powers upon children. The three women then beat up Kingpin's men, despite two of them having had no combat experience, in a moment that aims for empowerment but leans into the absurd. Maya then tries to make him confront his painful memories, but he runs away, portrayed more as a petulant child than the formidable villain we've come to know, especially from Netflix's Daredevil. The portrayal not only diminished the character of Fisk, but also undoes the legacy of one of the most compelling villains in a live-action adaptation. Marvel and Disney can't seem to create new characters without destroying those we loved.
What did you just do? What'd you do? Huh? What did you do?
The series wraps up with Maya returning to Tamaha, where she's embraced by her family at a barbecue, symbolically free of Kingpin's influence. But the truth is, they shouldn't be happy to see her. She wittingly put all their lives in danger, either forcing them to be complicit in her acts or straight up ignoring their advice to move on, and showed no atonement or guilt, something vital in a hero's journey. While the climax should feel like a moment of closure and renewal, it instead comes across as a hasty attempt to tie up loose ends. Although it features some stunning cinematography, the show suffers from an identity crisis. Its failure to delve into the inner workings of Maya Lopez leaves her motivations feeling like an unsolved puzzle, making it a Herculean task for the audience to truly connect with her. The series often meanders, losing the opportunity to channel Maya's bottled-up emotions and vulnerabilities into a compelling narrative force. This leaves viewers drifting between bouts of lukewarm action and a sense of narrative limbo, rather than being wholly invested in Maya's complex journey to a more nuanced character. A major issue with the lack of Cox's portrayal of Maya Lopez is the challenge in rallying support for her. In the first 3 episodes alone, Maya's hands are stained with the blood of over a dozen people. Her relentless aggression and tendency to endanger those close to her casts a shadow over her character, making her less relatable. The constant scowl she wears like a mask and her lack of range as an actress doesn't help either. The periphery characters, including Uncle Henry, Grandmother Chula, Biscuit, Scully, and Cousin Bonnie, are woefully underutilized. They seem to exist merely as satellites in Maya's orbit, lacking substantial storylines of their own. This one-dimensional treatment strips the series of potential depth and emotional layers. Interestingly, Maya's deafness, which could have been a pivotal aspect of the show, is underplayed as well. Sure, the inclusion of subtitled American Sign Language is commendable, and the occasional silencing of the score during action scenes is a clever nod to her perspective, but I would have loved to have seen more of this. Ultimately, Echo finds itself at a crossroads, unable to cater to any specific audience. It doesn't quite welcome newcomers despite its spotlight branding, nor does it seamlessly continue the narrative or tone of the Daredevil series, despite suggestive marketing. As a personal story, it functions, but lacks the depth and excitement needed to truly captivate. The promise of a spiritual successor to the beloved Netflix Marvel shows remains unfulfilled, leaving viewers straddling the line between nostalgia and the hope for something new. In its attempt to bridge these worlds and tick all the boxes of representation, Echo ended up as a series caught in its own echo chamber, forgetting the most important box, that of good storytelling.
No sequel for you.
Well, that's all for today, folks. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and if there's anything else you'd like for me to cover, please don't hesitate to ask. As always, it's been a pleasure. Nihat here with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.
I suspect you've come to kill me.
You're very perceptive.
I know now that I failed you. The same as my father failed me.
You're amazing. You figured this all out already.